Hey yo, what is going on, you guys? Alejandro here, and welcome back to another episode of Mugayon. In this episode, we're going to be building Malacanang Palace, taking inspiration from Malacanang Palace here in the Philippines, but also inspired by Buckingham Palace, the White House, and even the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. This is actually a two-part episode, so if you guys haven't watched part 1, the link is down below, and if you have, you can go continue on watching. If you guys haven't watched part 1 of this episode, I highly recommend you do so. The links are down below. That's where I build the bottom part of this one because the palace is located on top of the hill. As you can see, it's elevated to show its importance above everything else. And first I've actually placed down the palace already, the main building, but now I'm doing the terrace in front of it. Now, for this part of the build, I'm taking inspiration from the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. As you can see, it has a terraced front and back because it's also located on top of a hill, and they have a lot of stairs there, and that's where the president is inaugurated. They have this huge step here, I guess, and then people can sit down, and people are also located at the National Mall in front of it. That's where people gather. Now, I just wanted to copy the stairway aspect of this one, but people can also gather here at the grounds of the National Plaza, of the Royal Plaza Museum, Royal Palace Museum. I get everything mixed up now. But yeah, I'm using these assets and I'm changing them. These are university assets from Thailand, and I turned them into PO so that I can sink down the building but leave the sides available so that I can use them as the walls for this one and also as the fence, because the asset here, I just want to make it cohesive, and procedural objects allows us to get certain parts of buildings to make custom ones, if you know what I mean. And now I'm doing the stairs. I'm also POing it to make it wider and also to change its slope because the original one was a little bit small and it was basic. I wanted to give it a much more wider run and a lower rise, making the slope smoother because it's much more easier on the knees. If you've studied architecture, you'd know that different slopes have different effects to the people walking, and most royal houses, like the richer people can afford to have more stair space, so they do that. And a lot of stairs are very much highly ornamented, especially a long time ago, but now stairs are just serving their main purpose to go up and down. But here I want it to be grand, like what I've said before. And I've also added in this water feature down here. Now, originally this had a water feature, but I didn't like the way it was designed, so I changed it to this one. And we also have on the left and the right much larger elevated portions of the plaza. Now, this part is open to the public, but this is where the king or the royal Lakan, I'm still not sure on what they ended up with, because here in the Philippines, in the Tagalog area, Manila, there's a hierarchy for the people. There are the free people, the farmers, the workers, the warriors, and the rulers. Now, the rulers are called the Datus, and the highest of them all is Alakan. So that's kind of like the emperor, I guess, of the chiefdom, the kingdom, or something. Kingdom because the king rules it, but since it's not a king, I think it's called chiefdom. So yeah, here's where the Lakan of Magayon lives. And I'm just adding in here the using these networks to clean it all up. I tried to use a stone type of wall, but I then decided to just make it also white or light gray to just match the vibe of the palace itself. For cohesion, ubiquity, uniformity. Wow. The main of the country. Anyways, getting back to the thing. So yeah, here's where the ruler lives. I'm thinking that it's a little bit more not like the United Kingdom. So it's a mix and match of the monarchy of the United Kingdom and Japan, but it's also unique in a sense that it's different, if you know what I mean. But yeah, that is the royal family. He or she lives there. I'm thinking that probably it's a he because most of history, men were the highest rulers. But in the Philippines, women were also they also were lakans actually. Lakan is not only for a male. It's not, we don't have gender pronouns. Our pronouns are for everybody because we like that. Yeah, Philippines, pre-colonial Philippines was kind of like already knowing what's up with gender and all that kind of stuff, and they already have like, they're very accepting of everyone, and they know the fluidity of gender identity. So speaking of, the Lakan can be a man or a woman or whatever they want, but mostly the queer community, they were in charge of the religious aspect, like the Babaylan. They were in charge of the rituals and all that kind of stuff. So they are staying in the temple, the highest of them. But basically anybody can do anything here. But I'm thinking of giving the story of the lore a little bit of a drama. But before I get into the drama of the royal family, because a lot of royal families have dramas, I've been watching The Crown. So I'm still on season 2, even though that's been 3 years ago since it's streamed on Netflix. But yeah, it's an amazing show, if I can tell you. I watch it sometimes so that I can feel like I'm smart. Because whenever they talk in a British accent, especially if it's a little bit, a little bit posh, it gives me a little bit of sense of, a little bit of that. But yeah, getting back on this, the palace, we're building a fence around it. Now, this palace, speaking of posh and the crown, is inspired by Buckingham Palace on the back end. Or this is the front. Literally, I am confused because no, this is the back, because this used to be owned privately, but this is the entire palace grounds, even the plaza. But after the monarchy's power diminished, they decided to open this to the public, and now they can visit there whenever they want. But they can also have like tours inside the first floors of the palace, like in the White House they have tours and all that kind of stuff, but mostly it's private. The only the only public part is the museum. Here it's a little bit private. As you can see, we have a fence, and later on you'd see the front of it have a more similar vibe to Buckingham Palace. Now, I used decals to cover up the ground with this red brick type of thing, but the thing with decals, the further you go away, it doesn't render. Like if you zoom out, it doesn't render it. So I decided to put a asphalt texture, an asphalt surface, change the color of it to match the brick, and then placed it below it. So yeah, that's quite of a nice trick if you ask me. And now I'm doing what I've said, the Buckingham Palace inspiration. Now, in front of the Buckingham Palace, there is a fountain, and I also decided that since this has a similar angle to Buckingham Palace's location with the V thing, I decided to also place a roundabout here because there's a lot of important roads going through here. And since I'm following Daniel Burnham's plan and taking inspiration from it, actually, it's French inspired, wide boulevards, roundabouts inspired, so it's only fitting that we have another grand roundabout here. A stark difference from real life Manila, which only has a few roundabouts, and traffic is terrible in Manila. I haven't been there that much, only 3 times I guess, but it's bad. I'm gonna tell you, it's bad. But yeah, I'm just fixing the connections here. Now I guess you can see there is already a red there. I tried to cover the entire place up with red brick as well, similar to Buckingham Palace, but it just didn't click because it just felt a little bit too hot, and it's the 2030s. So later on in the live play, I'll explain to you what I mean. But now I'm just doing line detailing, just cleaning up the things and then laying out some lines so that it would be visible if it's actually a road or if it's where people walk on. So here, this is the extension of the one-way road going around the entire palace grounds, and it allows it goes even here. Yes, it's a very bikeable system. Later on, I will go into the live play to explain the bike system here, because the city is very bikeable, especially in the old parts of the city. But the further outside you go into the city, the less bikeable it becomes. Now we are doing the roundabout. I'm just doing basic roundabout detailings, and I'm not putting that much thought into that much attention to the lane mathematics here, because the traffic here is very, very low and not many people go here. But if I were be building in the highway build, which I will be building in future episodes, because the city really needs a highway, even though traffic is almost non-existent, I still want to build a highway. But yeah, I'm just doing this roundabout, two-way roundabout. No, it's not a two-way roundabout. It has 2 lanes going in and out, but in the center it has 3. I don't think that's how it's supposed to be. I think it's still supposed to be 2. Hit me up in the comments if I should change it into a 2-laned one in the center, in the main rotating thing, because I think that's the one that is most appropriate. Now, there's a little bit of an issue here. I don't think this is actually a roundabout. I think it's just an intersection with a little bit of a roundabout. What do you call those circular things that look like a roundabout but actually are not? It's what this is, because this intersection here, it has 4 intersecting things. So yeah, that's not good. I mean 3. 1, 2, 3. The one on the top, the bottom left, and the bottom right. They're all colliding with each other. Yeah. The lane detailing here is, I kind of love doing these lane detailings. They're kind of therapeutic, but they are not if you have to repeat again, because I already did it. Why should I do it again? It's one of the minor annoyances that I have. Why should I do something that I already did before only just to do it again for the sake of doing it again? If it has benefits, I would do it, but if it's just to get to what I already got to, it doesn't make sense. But yeah, this is the detailing. Now this also has a bike. It also has a bike in it, a bike lane. It has bike infrastructure. So this is also inspired by the Dutch styled roundabouts, which have a protected bike lane. And these roads that I'm using, actually, these are amazing. These roads are automatically doing these roundabouts, because if I remove that red one, underneath the decals or the surface, there's already lane connections given for you, which is amazing. You don't have to do this intersection marking anymore. So yeah, that road also there, the one on the left, the one that is connected diagonally to the roundabout, I closed that off because I'm only allowing bikes and pedestrians, cyclists and pedestrians. Why did I say bikes? It should be cyclists. I'm only allowing cyclists and pedestrians to use that road, because a lot of the places in the city are car free, or they are giving priority to people walking and biking. Just finishing cleaning up the lane connection, because this road is a little bit finicky. And yeah, I guess I'm going to be going into detailing this place right here. I'm not going to be going deep into the detailing here in the roundabout. I'm just going to be fixing these empty spaces here, and then I'm going to be adding in some trees. Now the way I do this is I'm using this grass curb network, and I'm covering up the inconsistencies that you can see here. That's why it looks very clean, and later on in the live play I'll show you this in more details. Now I decided to go back into the front because I got distracted with the roundabout. I shouldn't have even done the roundabout, but my brain was like, Buckingham Palace, what's in front of that? Fountain. Should I do that? No. Should I do that? I probably shouldn't, but I did. And that's me. One of the difficulties that I have in building in City Skylines, I get distracted and I build an entirely different thing outside of my plans. But hey, it is what it is. Now I'm doing the landscaping here in front. I want to keep it very manicured, very regal, very up there. And I also didn't want to cast too many obstructions over the view of the palace itself, because from the from the museum, you have a clear, straightforward view of the palace, but on the sides you have trees giving shade to the place because it's very hot. In the tropics, you'd want to have a shade, and people here really don't like to walk outside at noon because it's super hot. And yeah, shading is important. And now I'm doing this thing here. Now you've seen a little bit of a jump with the detailing here because I'm just gonna be replacing that entire thing later on because I didn't quite like what I built at the center as a centerpiece for the roundabout. I wasn't quite satisfied with that, so I decided to change it later on because if it ain't good, you wouldn't want to do something and then the more you look at it, you're saying, I could have done this, I could have done that. So while you're at it, just do your best so that whenever you look back at something, you wouldn't say that you should have done this and it should have done that. And if you ever do go do that, that's called growth. So yeah. Wow, philosophy. We have very very broad commentary. Now we're adding in this bollard thing that I also have at the front of the museum. Now this just allows the division of this place from the other place, and also so that people wouldn't go roaming around too much. And yeah, I decided to just cover that up with pavement in front because people are just going to be standing here. And I still haven't thought of what to place there, and I haven't detailed it yet because it's already been 4 hours. I mean 6. I've been playing for 6 hours here. And yeah, I mean that's not healthy, but I just got the hyper focus for ADHD. I can focus on for something for so long, ignoring the facts that my eyes hurt and I'm thirsty or I need to pee. But yeah, I'm not gonna be doing that anymore. But thankfully, I got something done, which is the palace. Now the landscaping here, I just kept it also very manicured and very well thought of. It's very French, because in the first attempt that I had for this, I decided to just keep it very natural in growth, but later on decided to just keep it similar to the French, very manicured, very regal in terms. You'd notice the one look at it and you'll see, that's a royal palace indeed, because you have to have specific trees and landscaping. Now I'm not that good at landscaping, and this is it's a great way to practice landscaping. I'm also adding in some lilies or lotus flowers there at the fountain because this is Southeast Asia and we have the perfect climate for growing trees and all the things you can think of. And also it's a unifying theme across the entire place because we have a lot of lotuses. We have a lot of lotuses in and around the waterways of the city. If you've watched the temple build, we have lotuses around the canal. If you watch the shopping district build, there's also lotuses in the canals. There are lotuses everywhere. And there is an entire district named after a lotus. It's an Indian name. I think it's Kayapo, which is what Quiapo is named after. So yeah, a little bit of etymology right there. And yeah, I'm just keeping it very minimal. You're seeing the fine lines, the highlights of the build. But if you saw the struggle behind this, girl, I just can't, honestly. This took too long to build. But thankfully, we've moved past that, and we can now finally move on and appreciate the beauty that is the palace. Later on in the live play, you're gonna see more of it because we still have a lot to talk about. But yeah, this is the roundabout rework. Now I changed it to have a fountain instead of a monument because water cool down the place. And I decided to just place this. I think this is from Germany, from Berlin. I'm not sure, Victory Monument. But I'm thinking that in this alternate reality, we have a lot of amazing artists and sculptors because we actually do. And just imagine the golden ornamentation here, because Southeast Asia loves gold. Also, Islam. I think Islam also likes gold. A lot of cultures love gold ornamentation, and gold is quite important to them. So I also want to add that fact into it. But yeah, I guess this is all that I have. I'm going to be skipping the night one. I did detail the night thing off camera, and I'm going to be going into live play to explain more on how this works. And welcome to the live play. This is now what we've ended up with. This is the palace, Malacanang Palace. Now you might say, why does it sound awfully similar to Malacanang Palace, which is the home of the President of the Philippines? And that's because it is similar. It has the same etymology because Malacanang, the root word for it, it's basically may lakan dyan, which means there is a lakan there. Now, lakan is the ruler of pre-colonial kingdoms or chiefdoms here in the Manila area in the Luzon. So it means that the ruler lives there. May lakan dyan. So that is the name of the palace. Etymology, once again. I love doing researches on how things are named and why they are named that way. It's just amazing. It just gives it a little bit more realism, in a sense that it feels like it's part of real life. Now, the architecture here, as you can see from this angle, it's very much Thai architecture. But when you look at pictures of Malacanang Palace, you'd see the similarity it has. Because in Malacanang Palace, it's located along the riverbank of Pasig River, along the banks of Pasig River, and you can basically ride a boat to get there. I think they used to go on boats to get there because that was the easiest way. But I wanted to take that aspect and apply it here. So you can see the glass windows, the columns, they give a vibe that this is like water and they're reflecting it. It gives it a vibe like it's water, as you can see. And we also have water features at the bottom, which further repeats the water thing we have going on here. So this is the palace itself. As you can see, it feels quite grand, especially if I zoom in, because it fills the entire frame. If you guys want to make things look large, you gotta be creative with how you frame things. You have to have a subject that is small in it to make it feel big. But the city skyline Sims, though, it has some issues. They're quite tall. I think they're 2 meters tall. They're quite large as compared to Southeast Asian people. We're not that tall, especially Filipinos. So they're gigantic. I think they're 6 feet tall actually. And the palace has gorgeous views. This is the southern face, the west end of the palace. As you can see, I removed the statue, by the way. If you've noticed, there's no statue up there on the top because I just want to keep it as is. And there are gorgeous places here. Now, I've said that people would gather here since this is the King's Palace, the presidential inauguration will not be held here. Instead, this is where the royal family announces news, if a new king is, or if a new lakan is ordained, or if a child is born into the royal family. They would stand there and then they would wave, and that's that. They also have royal parades here. And I'm thinking that since the Philippines, if you guys didn't know, before the Spanish came, there were already people settling here, small civilizations already living here. Oh, what is this? There is a sign written here. It's in Korean though. Oh, there's an English translation beside it. Let's go and read it. This is the fountain, 1223. After Admiral Yi's dismissal as Supreme Commander of the... Oh, this is nice. We have a plaque here, so that just adds to the significance of this one. It gives it significance, but we don't have any monuments there. And I'm thinking that, so just imagine that there are a lot of ornamentations there, because as you can see, we already have ornamentations here, but I didn't want to make it too significant. I just kept it bare. Just imagine that there is very much Southeast Asian ornamentation there. Hands down, this palace really does look amazing, especially from this angle right here. Here you can clearly feel its significance, its power over the populace, because As I've said, it's located on top of a hill. It is on a plinth. I just just studied about that plinth. I never knew what they call the things that if it's a little bit above than everything else. The story about a plinth, the thing with plinths are they elevate the space. It's a distinction from normal people, like the averageness of everyone, and then a building is elevated, which means you're going into the realm of the divine realm. So that's why this is very important to be elevated. As I've said, this is taking inspiration from the Capitol building. This is where the president is inaugurated, something like that. So this they would just have like retractable seating here on the side so that people can sit down and attend the ceremony. And people who want to watch the ceremony can gather here along the entire linear park. And they probably would turn off the fountains because nobody would really want to be wet during the ceremony. And that's why we also have this type of trees here. I chose ones that are manicured, as you can see here. They are, I think these are from the French. And we have smaller types because I want to preserve the view here because this is a very much communal space. And imagine if, people can attend here, a lot of people can fit in. As you can see, there are already people gathered here because, yeah, it just gives it a sense of scale. Now look at that. That's just gorgeous. I think we are lacking a bit in the tropicalness, but we have already palm trees on the sides, and I think that's quite right because, yeah, I'm gonna be adding more. We have a fountain here, which also is similar to what the fountain inside the palace looks like. Now, as I've said, this entire place right here, this used to be open. This used to be only owned by the palace. This entire place here used to be just the palace grounds. But, they decided to open it to the public, open the museum, and all the artifacts, East Asia, wow, away from everybody else. So that kind of makes it like that. So just imagine a lot of artifacts hidden inside. This is one of the more premier center of the arts. People can basically chill here and do all that kind of stuff. What are you doing? Why are you inside? It's part of the generator of the people. But yeah, it's a lot of Europeans are visiting. A lot of Caucasian. We have a lot of Caucasians in Asia, yes, visiting the city. You kind of you're loving this view, aren't you? It's just I can just sit here for as long as I can. I probably won't during day, especially at noon, because it would be scorching here, scorchingly hot in some days, but most days it would be cool because we have fountains, we have water, and we have trees, and it's gorgeous. And people can basically, this entire place is closed off during royal events. Just imagine that, as I've said, the Philippines was full of various different kingdoms. The Philippines, if you might have known, because in the books we've studied that that said we were like very nomadic tribes, nomadic culture. We didn't know anything. We were dumb. You were just basically pre-Stone Age type people. But actually we have civilized societies back then, and each island had civilized societies unique from each other. Not only in each island has various different tribes together. So the Philippines really is super diverse. And saying that only one type of people are the only ones that should be is not right. It definitely is not. That's very European, or not very European, like the very colonialist mindset, if I can say. But yeah, this reality escaped colonialism. And if you guys haven't watched the build for this one, this is the museum, as I've said. It's quite gorgeous. And this bridge, oh my gosh, this bridge is very, very gorgeous. We have twin bridges. So that one and this one, they are the same. But this one is much more decorated because it's literally in the foot of the palace. But that one is, yeah, it needs a little bit of work to be done. Okay, so now I've already explained the entire museum. That's in part 1. So if you guys want to go on a much more deeper analysis of the space, you can hit that up. This is just gorgeous. These are just gorgeous. Thai architecture is very beautiful. in its own right. It's godly because it's basically a temple. That's why it's godly. Anyways, getting back to this, the vibe that it's giving me, it's very much, it's giving me ancient Rome type of vibes with a mix of Southeast Asia. It's gorgeous. Okay, we have, that is the southern end, open to the public. You can go on tours here, but mostly, yeah. I'm thinking that this is like the Oval Office of the king because it's overlooking the fountain. This entire place is private, by the way. Nobody is allowed to enter this unless if you're like a guest. You can enter here like there. This is where you go in, you're dropped off, and you're welcome to this grand space. But other than that, it's very public. Outside, it's very private. Now, this space is reserved solely for the royal family, or now this place up here is reserved solely for the royal family or people working here, or if you're lucky, a visitor. But mostly only royal descendants or royal people are allowed here. I'm thinking that since the Philippines had tribes, and even now to this day in Mindanao there are royal families like the sultanates. They still are. They're real people. They're not just making it up. They have titles. They literally have a history with them, like an entire bloodline. But yeah, they are visiting here because I'm thinking that this is Philippines. As I've said, with the lore, we have various different tribes, and I decided na why don't we let them visit here for like a royal thing, because in Europe they also visit in other places. They visit, they have royal visitors from every like country they visit, and then they can only marry with each other, I think. But yeah, I think that was the case here too in the past. You can only marry into the royal bloodline of allied tribes, because you really can't marry from Mindanao because they have their own thing there. I'm thinking that Mindanao is not part of the United place. I think it's its own country, but similar to the United Kingdom, but not at the same time. It's like a federation. They follow the same. They have one ruling president, but all nations have their own like laws and stuff. Very different from each other, but also unified. I don't know. That's just that. They want to preserve diversity, but also be unified as one united people. Now, from the top, look at the symmetry of this thing. The design of this is very nice. It can stand on its own. There's this diagonal road here, and yeah, it connects and it intersects here. Intersects here. It intersects here in this point, and this is the royal fountain. I'm still not sure if I should keep this one, because I'm quite tempted to remove it after consideration, because this is very European. Okay, I made my decision. We're removing this fountain. I know I'm taking inspiration from Europe and France and all that kind of stuff, but this is essentially Southeast Asian, so we have to keep it as is. This is very southeast. So yeah, I removed it. This is a more traditional one. It's a bamboo statue. I think this is from Indonesia, and I think it just makes the space a little bit more gorgeous. And the fountain already is making it gorgeous with its mist. It's not a fog, it's a mist. It also makes it feel much larger because the fountain is more significant than the statue itself. And over there on the side, you can see the downtown. That is, I'm still not quite sure on the buildings. They have to be changed. But yeah, that is another city. I think that is Kayapu. No, Kayapu doesn't have any skyscrapers. That is in the middle of everything. It's a very much high rise. That's one of the clusters we have in the city. And this road right here goes directly into all the major things. Oh no, not this one. This one. This avenue here goes straight into the walled city over there. And it's quite far away. So yeah, it also has direct access to Quiapo, which has a church, because I'm planning this would be a bit of a Spanish settlement. So I'm thinking of placing a cathedral there. Maybe not that building, but a cathedral. I want it to be grand. And I'm also planning on placing a mosque somewhere, because even though most of the Muslims, Islam is the religion, Muslim are the people. So even though Muslims live mostly in Mindanao, they also live here. And this is a very diverse place. They have a lot of everybody here. They also have Thais, so as you can see by the architecture of it all. But yeah, that is the temple over there. It's quite gorgeous, isn't it? It's quite iconic. That is the Manila Manila City Hall. I'm gonna be using that. That's the capital. I'm gonna be changing that because I'm gonna be removing those two towers right there, because I want to keep the Capitol building, the most important one, and also the obelisk. I wanted to give it significance, proper significance. And I'm gonna be redoing the National Mall there because it is outdated. After building this, I decided it just seemed old. Yeah, we have a lot of bikeable things here, as I've said, quite gorgeous. This park here, I'm still undecided. From top, the roundabout just looks gorgeous. It's very nice. I'm running out of words. My vocabulary is weakening. But yeah, I've just been reduced to sounds, to noises. But yeah, you can see here I've closed this entire place off. You can't go while he's actually using that, so I'm gonna be banning them from using that road. So yeah, this avenue here, very significant roads, as I've said. This one I'm still not quite sure on how to deal with this. Yeah, if you guys have any suggestion on what to do here, hit me up in the comments. And yeah, we also have a lot of empty plots still. Now this entire place here is done. I'm gonna be filling these in with houses, I guess, or important office buildings, and this is gonna be another extension of the palace grounds. Yes, watch out for that. That's gonna be on future episodes, but I don't think that might be the next one, because I kind of want to move on from place to place and then just go back to them in later episodes, because I want to keep it fun for me too, because sometimes I get burnt out if I get too much into a specific place. You just gotta diversify your workload or your things, because even though I'm doing this for fun, sometimes it feels like a job, and it's not fun when it feels like a job now. So yeah, that's that. From top, it looks gorgeous. Now this park, as I've said, with this park, I'm not quite sure about this and its shape. It's just there as a placeholder. But yeah, it's very gorgeous. Imagine a long time ago when all the royalties here in the Philippines, or ancient Philippines, they would land here and they would enter this gorgeous plaza, and they would rise into the grand hall where everybody is like enjoying, but the meals would be like in the dinner area. But yeah, I'm not that very much annoyed with the palaces, but I have seen a lot of palaces and they have very grand stuff. Yeah. And yeah, this is the Royal Palace Museum and Malacanang Palace. It's quite gorgeous. It's one of, if not the best build that I've made so far in the series using City Skylines. And I couldn't have done it without you guys. Oh my god, I'm getting sentimental. Oh my god, guys, stop it. Yeah, honestly, I couldn't do it without you guys. Honestly, I can, but who would even watch? And if I wouldn't have an audience to share this with, I wouldn't have the perseverance to continue on doing so and learn a lot as well, because you guys leave the best feedback. And in continuing to do that, comment down below any suggestions you want to see next, or any comments you have about this palace. And if you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up. Now, making these videos take a lot of time and effort, as you might have seen. The time lapse is already sped up, but it took 4 hours for the museum, another 4 hours for the palace, and an additional 2 hours for tying everything up. Editing is, I don't want to go into editing because it's one of the hardest parts. But yeah, you want to show your support to the channel, consider becoming a patron on patreon.com/Calejandro and get exclusive content, early access, and so much more. And on episode 50, I'll be releasing the save game of Magayon to all patrons, but I'm going to be releasing the save game as is now to Patreons on the highest tier or anybody who just want to test it out, because once I release the save game, I want you guys to be able to play it. Loading the save game is not gonna be easy. If you have to have a medium spec setup, you can't use this with just basic things. If you have a high-end setup, you'd probably be able to run this, because I'm just running this on a very mediocre setup, mediocre gaming setup. But yeah, if you can't join Patreon, that's okay. You can still subscribe and click that bell notification to be notified whenever I upload a brand new episode. This is Calejandro signing off. Bye.